Welcome to The Fountain with Ellie Thomas. The fountain is an image that I use in my work often to speak of our multidimensionality, to connect with the life, the living water flowing within us through mind, body, spirit, heart, and all. This show is a place where we explore it all, where we tap into wisdom that has surfaced through pain and joy and the fullness of our journeys. This podcast is a place to come and remember, to sink back into the living water that flows within you and to be guided back to your fountain, your fullness, your wholeness, and how to be with that as we navigate living as divine humans in this wild, wild world and this wild, wild journey. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in together and be refreshed and consoled by the water that wants to flow through. Welcome back to the fountain. Today, I am sitting in a moment of feeling like I am pretty drained. And often I say to you, I definitely work to not put anything out that I don't feel is coming from a clear energy. But I also have this little voice being like, what if we just let the people into the process of coming back to connection when we feel disconnected? I felt like maybe it could serve and unite others as well in their own process. And one of the things that I've been noticing with everything happening in the Middle East and the way that it's just the energy of that is moving in the world, just been feeling like we're all kind of full, but not like operating in our fullness kind of full. Like we are full to the brim and it's almost numbing. It's requiring a lot of energy to move with, and we don't even know that we're necessarily full. Like we can feel the intensity of things moving. We can intellectually understand that there's a lot, but we're not necessarily even connected to just how it's impacting our connectedness to ourselves. And there's so much coming up around uncertainty and fear and pain that I've continuously had nuggets of, oh yeah, this is something more to go into and explain. And at the same time, every time I start recording that for you or exploring it more, I think what we really need now is just this continuous space to come into connection again, because it is very easy to either be so filled up to the brim that we almost feel like stiff within ourselves energetically, which causes this sense of disconnection where we can't really feel ourselves. And I know that I personally have been moving with not only like I'm very sensitive to energies outside of myself and all around me, I also have been moving just with a lot of attention to day-to-day things over the past couple weeks and needing to give a lot of myself in those places. And while generally feeling really happy to do that, I also need some extra space and extra slowness and extra quiet right now to come back. And I also feel myself resisting that. Sometimes what we most need is what we most resist. And I know exactly how to carve out that space for myself. And yet when we're drained or when we're kind of full, it takes some extra effort to really be in devotion to that. And I am really all about, well, part of my path is definitely about the constant journey and work of coming back into connection with myself. And then from that, guiding other people into that and being in this as a process of complete, not perfection. Like part of this is that we are going to disconnect. We are going to not remember. The journey is so rich in the reconnecting, in the coming back. And I recently said to a client who we were exploring new levels of a theme that's been very alive in my life in the past 7 or so years, and therefore is something that I work with people around, is this transition that happens over time on a healing journey when we move from a focus on doing and worth and value being placed in that, and kind of operating completely from a place of doing, giving, inactivity, like outward movement. And with a lot of people that I work with, what we end up doing is working through a process naturally that's not even something that I'm trying to do. It's something that's happening in their soul reconnection, of calling them back to being. And I have walked this is a whole podcast in and of itself. I have walked this and been rewalking it and rewalking it and refining it for years. And now I feel generally so anchored in my being, even when I'm tired, even when I'm drained, even when I have had to do a lot. So anchored in my being. And yet, perfectionism really exists. This is what I was telling to my client. Perfectionism really exists in the doing. When it comes to being and beingness and really swimming in the seas of what that means. And I say swimming in the seas because we are going to hit rocks and waves and take on new forms and shapes as we move through our lives. When it comes to the being, there is no perfection. There is only presence and connection. And so one of the kind of symptoms for me of feeling disconnected is this resistance towards presence and connection, which is ironic. It's not even that I've resorted back necessarily to perfectionism. However, I can feel energy of that, which really comes from a place of deep fear and deep need, arising when I am disconnected. And as I stated earlier, one of the reasons I'm here and one of the reasons I share this with others is because I have needed to devote myself to the reconnection to myself and my path over and over and over again. And I probably will for the rest of my life. And from there, everything flows. That's where the sense of Ellie flow or fountain flow comes from. Without the connection to my being, there is no flow. Without the connection to the earth and to the heavens, and then to all that is around me, which all stems from the epicenter of all of that, which for me is like my heart, the core column of my torso and my being energetically and physically. Without that, nothing flows anywhere. And yet there's nothing wrong when it doesn't flow. It's just a moment. And it doesn't feel really good to me anymore because I'm more connected to the flowing than the not flowing these days, which is like an incredible thing for me to say, because I'll paint the picture for the past Ellie in another moment, but that past Ellie was all about pushing and forcing and controlling subconsciously and consciously. And so every little moment that we get to just remember and sense all these places where, whoa, I'm really full of the world, of other people's things. And I keep getting this image of a outline of a human and just these water levels that are moving up, and just there's like no space left in the outline of this human. There's just this tiny, tiny gap of space, but they can hardly kind of breathe into themselves and feel themselves. They're just so stuffed. It reminds me a little bit of the stress speaker that I would talk about when I worked in the nutrition field, of really understanding everybody has our own jar of different shapes and different sizes that can hold stress and our stress reactions. And for some people, it's smaller and lower than for others. And for other people, it's huge. And the amount of stress that impacts one person does not impact physically their body. But for another person, that same amount just takes them out completely. This is a little bit different, but the image of just where is the water line right now? Where is the stimulation line? Where is the fullness line of having taken in and unintentionally absorbed so much of everyone else in the world that we're not able to feel ourselves and move within ourselves anymore? And I say anymore, not as a determinate thing, anymore as in this moment. And therefore, when I sense that line, I can feel the like deep call back to reconnect with my being and my beingness. So how do we reconnect? When there is still so much happening in the world that we don't get to choose to shut out and shut off. When we still need to move through our daily lives, through our moments of celebration and tension, how do we reconnect? And for everyone, this will be a little bit different. And my senses and what I'm feeling in myself is just as we move through this during this podcast, as I speak, as you listen, as we move in this, there is this just process of awareness and then acknowledgement that aids us in simply noticing how full, stiff, or disconnected we are. And that is the key to opening the door to just letting it move out of us slowly. And we can do meditation, we can do breath work, we can go on a run or do a sweaty workout. All of those things are so good at moving energy out of us and are incredible for this. You can take a shower, a bath, art. And also, sometimes all we need is to just become aware, acknowledge, oh wow, yeah, I am way more full than I like to be. Everything that's been happening in the past few weeks has absolutely impacted the fluidity of movement of myself within my being, the fluidity of my energy within my life. Let's just sit with that. Stillness in these moments of crisis and uncertainty are few and far between. We have to consciously choose them. It's really easy, and I know that I've done this myself in the past few weeks a few times, much more than I'd like. It's really easy to just skip over the extra space and the extra stillness. And yet, when everything is moving so quickly and intensely around us and we are so filled up, what we most need is to turn towards spaciousness and stillness and to go slower than maybe we've ever gone before. And going slow is a whole conversation because for some people, there's a lot that needs to go into just re-regulating and debunking and releasing in order to even go slow, because the go slowing can feel so much like a threat to your own system. For some, it takes a while to get there, and that is okay. Today, the invitation is just to bring awareness, acknowledgement, and then to just choose to be for a moment. To look around your space with your eyes open, to look down at your feet and where they're planted, to place some hands on your body and just feel yourself here in this moment. To sense into, where is my pulse in my body? What is my body saying to me? What are the needs that have been hollering, screaming out, asking for attention, or maybe even just very gently tapping on me that I have overridden or not made space for? Again, sensing our pulse. Sometimes we need to sense into our body, our physical vessel, before we can feel into our pulse. And our pulse is also, of course, physical. And also, I believe it just carries this energetic signature, this message of, here I am. This remembrance of being alive. Just sit with your pulse for a moment. Eyes open or eyes closed, whatever helps you most connect without detaching, without numbing. What is your pulse saying to you? What does your body want and need? What are the thoughts moving through your mind that maybe you could write down on a sheet of paper to just get out of your system, outside of you for a moment, so that you won't forget them and don't feel like you need to grip onto them, but you can come back to them later? What does it feel like to be you today? Sometimes, and this was the case for me for so long, my doing, my devotion to doing, was a survival strategy, a mechanism of protection against feeling all of my pain if I would stop. Feeling all of my fear. It's a way to keep moving in control and kind of a sense of, actually at the time, false empowerment that I was okay and I was going to be okay. And as I slowly was guided inwardly and outwardly to pull back the layers on that, just very gently, piece by piece. This is a multi-year process, not a stark shift. There's now space to just ask and notice why I'm turning towards certain things. And underneath that, there's always this knowing of, there's discomfort, there's pain, there's grief. There's a well of emotion here. And even though I feel like I am walking a masterful path of emotional stewardship and coming into connection, moving with emotion, I feel this is a great part of my personal calling and my calling in my outer work. I still have to choose it again. I still have to remember how much it liberates in me. Going back to the episode on the power of energetic and emotional release, I still have to remember. And if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen because it's very pertinent to right now. I still have to remember how powerful that release is and how much it offers me, how much it offers the world, because I am therefore freed through the process of choosing to sit with and be with my pain and to make space for it and to open up to it. And therefore, flow can come again. And so often our minds want to protect us from that moment. And it's funny because the idea of flow in the mental realm sometimes might seem like that's the exact opposite of being with pain. However, if we invite ourselves into full being flow, one of the keys here is opening to the places that we're most trying to escape within our capacity. Very important to say, within our capacity. And so just right now, within your capacity, just notice what's here that I could be with. Can I put my hand on that place where it's indicating to me that it lives in my body? Can I let my breath travel there? Can I soften more fully into my seat or into my feet if I'm walking? Can I allow the emotion that's asking to flow out and make space in that process to come? This is where, again, if you haven't done this before and feel called to it, a journal can be really helpful. Writing can be a beautiful practice to just let whatever comes to come and have a place outside of you to be without you needing to hold it anymore. I have felt so pertinent to this time is exploring more deeply the dance of uncertainty that we're all moving with right now. Because it's in our face and there's no denying it. And the idea is, well, not the idea. The truth is that we are always dancing with uncertainty, but whether we are consciously doing it or not is the question. And most of us definitely don't want to consciously dance with uncertainty because it requires a lot of awareness and a lot of energy and understanding of the possibilities and also the lack of control that we have. And also, it's a doorway to so much more life and connection. But in order to really tap in there, my sense these past few weeks has been coming into connection with the fears that the uncertainty of the world bring to the surface is the key, truly learning how to move with it. So just notice right now, what are the fears, the stories, the beliefs that the uncertainty of the world is kind of reflecting back to you or asking you to look at within yourself, whether they be collective fears or whether they be very personal. For me, I've been noticing that the uncertainty that's being kind of swirled through the world energetic realms and kind of, I don't know how to say this. These are not the right words. That's being highlighted, I think is a better word, highlighted in the atmosphere all around us, is really showing me the places where I am sad and bitter about all of the places that uncertainty has already touched and moved. And it also has taught me so much. I'm not negating that, but it's been asking me to really come into the idea of having felt the pain of our humanness, of my humanness, of the human life. And also, it's been really highlighting to me these tiny little places where these kind of core wounds around worth, value, enoughness, which I know that my value does not depend on those things. And also there's parts of me that are still healing and moving with that. And the uncertainty has highlighted that again. The enoughness of having enough time, of doing enough, going back to these pulls towards perfectionism or doingness that can be there when I'm disconnected from myself, from my greater being. So what are they for you? What are the core places that are being highlighted at this moment based on everything you're moving with in the personal and the collective? How is uncertainty speaking to you? Where is it asking for you to give some attention and some space to unravel so that you can enter through that doorway into greater connection into life? Now I feel like we could just sit in silence for a long time. And I probably am going to do that. And if you have space for that, I recommend that for a little bit. Just feel into the space that's been created through listening, through tuning in, and see what comes up. See what else is speaking. Or just enjoy the silence. Be nourished. Be nourished by it. Be nourished by the unloading of this process, by having more space within you. So I'll leave you to just be for as long as you can, and to trust that every piece of beingness that you tap into, every sector of beingness that you tap into here, moves forward into your life with you. Little by little, we reclaim and we remember. Be well. I will talk to you very soon. If you're looking for more spaces this month to be in processes like these within a held container, with community, the November workshops are going up this weekend, and so make sure to tap into that, check those out, and sign up. The call towards being in community in these processes and not closing ourselves off from the power that can happen there has been so strong for me. So if you feel nudged, pulled, highlighted, called into that as well, join me there, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to The Fountain. Please take a moment to rate and review the show and to send it along to a friend that comes to heart or mind. I'd also love to hear what came up for you and your experience listening to the most recent episodes. So reach out via your podcast app or send me an email. And if you'd like to book your first session or explore working together more, find me at ellieflow.com.